When the original Mazda CX-9 made its debut over 10 years ago, it was designed to be a replacement for the old MPV minivan. Now, if you guys remember the first generation, it was based loosely off the Ford Edge. It even had a Ford V6 engine under the hood. Now, when Mazda finally redesigned the CX-9 in 2016, it was an all Mazda product with an all-new turbocharged engine under the hood. So with new competition in the form of the Volkswagen Atlas and Subaru Ascent, what I want to know is the 2019 Mazda CX-9 still the sportiest and best-looking large crossover in the segment? That's what we're here to find out. So you guys should be really familiar with the CX-9, at least this current generation. I've shown you guys this car about twice now. I remember when the car first came out in 2016, and then I had one last year that was a Grand Touring model. As you can see, for 2019, there are no visual changes to this car. And honestly, it still looks like one of the most handsome and sleek, stylish crossovers in the segment. You can see LED headlights are actually standard. They're these really slim LEDs with this signature Mazda 5-point grille that kind of goes or blends into the LED. It's got a chrome accent. You have a very large Mazda emblem in the front, and then the signature trim also includes the lower chrome at the lower fascia, these integrated parking sensors, and then these really tiny fog lights at the lower part of the fascia. And overall, I think the design has continued to age well, but just remember, Mazda has a newer front end on the new Mazda 3 and the CX-5 where it has a slightly different grille. I think what Mazda needs to do is they need to apply that refreshed front fascia to the refreshed CX-9, which we should see coming out in the year 2020 or 2021. Now, as you guys can see, this is a big vehicle, but it doesn't necessarily look all that big when you first see the car in person. Mazda really hides the dimensions very well within this car. Now, this particular one being the signature trim is the top of the spec. It comes standard with these 20-inch wheels, which are wrapped in 255/50 series tires. The Grand Touring models and up will basically get the 20s. The signature has a slightly unique finish to the wheel. They look nice. They fill out the wheel wells nicely. Now, in terms of the actual size, this is actually one of the bigger entries, which it doesn't really look that way. It's wheelbase at 115 inches long and an overall length of around 199 inches long. This is about 6 inches longer than something like a Honda Pilot, which honestly, when you look at it from the side profile, it doesn't look like it's bigger than the Pilot, but it actually is. Now at the back, that traditional Kodo design language carries through. As you can see, hasn't really made any changes. There's that chrome that goes into the taillight, which the taillights themselves are an LED combination. The turn signals are just an incandescent, whereas the front, they give you LED turn signals as well. Down here, there's these really nicely well-integrated dual exhausts, which is nice, although I kind of wish Mazda made the pipes a little bit fatter. There are definitely a lot of things that a lot of other vehicles that have a slightly more aggressive exhaust setup. Now, in terms of the cargo area, the power tailgate is included on this trim, and this is where the CX-9 is a little bit behind the times, or at least smaller than the segment. You're only looking at around 14.7 cubic feet of space with the seats up. So with the third row up, it's a little bit on the cramped side. Now you can fold down this third row, which Mazda makes it fairly easy to do. And then when you do that, this expands to about 38 cubic feet of space, which is again, not much larger than what you get in something like a compact crossover, like a Subaru Forester or a RAV4, for example. If you fold down the second row again, you're gonna get around 71 cubic feet of space. So again, about 10 to 15 less cubic feet of space versus most of the competition. So visually, the exterior of the 2019 CX-9 doesn't look any different, but Mazda has made some key upgrades to the car on the inside for 2019. But let's first take a look at the key fob. You guys know this key fob. Mazda has a new key fob that's going to be introduced on the 2019 Mazda 3, which I'll be driving in March of 2019. But this is the key fob that comes standard on most of them. It's the intelligent access key. It does have a button where you can open up the rear liftgate, but no remote start from the key fob. As you approach the exterior of the CX-9, there's a button here. Just touch that button here, the mirrors will electrically fold. And if you want to unlock the door, Mazda doesn't do a sensor, you have to touch the button again. and that will unlock the door for you. Now, as you can see, my signature trim level has a unique leather that Mazda calls like an auburn Napa leather. It's kind of like a burgundy color with the contrasting piping, the unique stitching. It's definitely a nice looking interior. This hasn't changed from the last CX-9 that I showed you guys back in 2018 and 2016, although the 18 was a GT model. The seats, as you can see, are a 10-way power adjustment. I'm surprised Mazda isn't doing like a thigh extender or a 4-way lumbar, but you do have 2-person memory seats. 3-level heat and 3-level ventilation is included for 2019, which is a new feature. Definitely a must-have if you guys are going to buy a vehicle like this, but still makes a great first impression. It feels like a luxury car when you first open up this door. You can see the door panel also has real aluminum trim and real rosewood trim. That's part of the signature trim. It's why you paid an extra $2,000 for this package. Now, stepping inside, it has a really nice, easy step-in height, just like every other crossover, and then when you shut the door, it sounds nice and solid. So this is definitely one of the most solid sounding doors in this segment, which again, this is populated with so many newcomers coming for the 2019 and 2020 model year. Now, when you want to start the vehicle up, just put your foot on the brake, push this button here to fire up the engine. And you can see the gauges haven't changed. This is Mazda's latest infotainment display. It's an 8-inch display over there. And then what you heard was the 2.5 liter Skyactiv G turbo engine starting up. The engine itself is definitely a torquey motor. We'll go into the test drive later on. Mazda didn't make any changes this year. Now, looking at the rest of this cabin, you can see, love how Mazda carries over the burgundy color onto the actual dashboard. This is all soft touch right here. It says soft touch injection molded plastic. I think it's time for Mazda to kind of include the leather stitching on the dash that they included like on the new CX-5 and the 6 and the upcoming Mazda 3. So it's definitely due for a refresh on the interior as well. The door panels are also soft touch, but none of that stitching. Love the real aluminum and real wood trim. The windows are one touch for the front and for the rear, so it's one touch on all 4, which is definitely nice. You have a padded armrest right here, and then down here it's hard touch plastic with a little bit more storage, but that's typically the norm. Now the steering wheel, it's just a manual tilt telescoping. Some competitors offer power, but it offers a good amount of adjustability and range, which is definitely great for allowing drivers to get a good, comfortable driving position. The head-up display is included on this trim. It was the first Mazda vehicle to actually include a projected head-up display as opposed to that flip-up glass that I don't like. As you can see there's the 360 camera, which is a new feature for 2019. It's really terrible in terms of the graphics, but you have to, I guess, applaud Mazda for at least including the 360 camera. This is the 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system, which the touchscreen only works when you guys are actually at a stop, so you have to keep that in mind. Most of the times you're going to be using this rotary controller here to control the touchscreen. Now, as you can see here, the steering wheel hasn't really changed. It's still the same steering wheel with all your buttons here for the adaptive cruise, your steering wheel controls. No paddles on the wheel. I'm surprised that Mazda doesn't include that considering their sporty mission. But let's go over to the head unit really quick, because the biggest news for 2019 is the addition of that. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is now included on most of the trims of the CX-9. It definitely makes this infotainment system work a lot better. As you guys know, Mazda Connect is definitely not at the top of the segment in terms of infotainment systems, but I do like the fact that you do have, the Apple CarPlay and the Waze and the Google Maps or the Android Auto, so Mazda gives you that choice. You can go back to the regular head unit here, which again hasn't really changed in terms of the overall layout. Applications is where you go to find Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, or you can also just push and hold the home button here, and that will cycle between Apple CarPlay and the Mazda Connect head unit here, which is definitely a nice little shortcut feature. Now you can see here when you go to your audio display, again it goes automatically to the Apple CarPlay. Let me go back over there, and that's kind of annoying when you hit that. So to go back, I want to actually go back to just the Mazda head unit here, or the Mazda audio system, not my phone. So go to entertainment there, and that'll give you the option to go over there, where it can show you, it shows a nice representation of the actual channel display for whatnot, but I don't like the way Mazda does their presets. You have to go over here to favorites, and to add and remove favorites, I wish Mazda gave you an option to just delete all of them if you'd like, and then I wish there was like shortcut buttons here, like where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, where you can just quickly program it. To program a station now, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, because like, for example, let's say you want to program this station, you have to go here to favorites, and you have to go to add to favorites. It's just kind of annoying. It's like an additional step, whereas a lot of other brands, they just allow you to just quickly push a button or you can add it in a much faster way. So Mazda has a new infotainment system that they're going to be showing on the new 3, which I haven't had a chance to really go in depth with, which I will next month. Now, as you can see here, tri-zone climate control is included. You have 3-level heated seats, a heated steering wheel, and you also have 3-level ventilated seats, which work really well. They're a little bit noisy when they do turn on, but this is the same ventilated seats that you find on the 6 and the CX-5, so it's nice that Mazda is including that. You have a nice little storage compartment here where you can put like your phone or your sunglasses or whatnot. This controls the 6-speed automatic transmission. As you can see, when you put it into reverse, it automatically just shows the rear view, and if you want to show the 360, you have to push down the command controller and that'll show the 360 view. Again, not really the best in terms of graphics, but it does have trajectory. It does have parking sensors in the rear, which is nice. No automated parallel parking. Mazda doesn't do that feature just yet. You can see here, there's the sport button here, or the sport mode for the transmission. You have a manual mode down here in the transmission, electronic parking brake. The knobs and controls, they feel really good, high quality. Not like, I would say like Audi-like, but it looks Audi-like, just doesn't have that satisfying click like Audis give you. Cup holders over here. I will say that the storage compartment here is not as good like what you get in the Honda Pilot or the Toyota Highlander, so just keep that in mind. A nice padded area right here where you can see your USB, 2 USB ports over there. It actually specifically tells you which one you need to plug it into to get the Apple CarPlay. Decent amount of storage here, which is good. The glove compartment, as you can see, is on the smaller side, but it's lined with felt, it's damped. Some competitors offer more space, as I said. The seats, I really like the leather in this particular trim. It's really comfortable, it's really soft and supple. Love how they're heated and cooled, so I found them to be extremely comfortable. The 12-speaker Bose audio system in this car also sounds good. It's pretty much on par, a little bit on the bass heavy side because it's a Bose. Mazda does not do a panoramic sunroof. Instead, you just get this standard sunroof. The car could really use one, honestly. The interior is a little bit on the dark side, but overall, the cabin of the CX-9 is still really nice. A little bit less practical in terms of storage and space as some competitors because this vehicle is not quite as wide, but Mazda's thrown in some good features like the 360 camera, the cooled seats, so stuff like that are going to keep the CX-9 competitive for a couple more years. So getting into the second row of Mazda's largest vehicle, remember this is a family crossover, and when you get back here, you can see there's a lot of space. And also I really like how the seats slide forward and back. They also recline if you guys want to give people a little bit more space, which is nice. It basically allows for a lot of versatility back here, which is important in the second row. Now in terms of the space, Mazda says there's about 38 inches of legroom. The floor is not completely flat here, so it does take into your space for the middle passenger, but I'm 5'7". I've got good leg room, good foot space underneath here. You have like 2-level map pockets on both seats. You have rear seat climate control controls, vents. You have heated rear seats with 3 levels, which is nice. And I really wish that there was a panoramic sunroof really to let in more light, but overall you have these nice manual sunshades, which are good. And then the materials are also soft touch back here. Now, if you guys don't have a middle passenger, you can fold down the armrest over here, which gives you 2 cup holders. And then Mazda will put the 2 USB ports here in the center console, so they're not really out of the way, or you can hide your stuff, your cords in here when you are using them. But overall, the second row space is good, but let's hop into the third row because that's always the biggest test with a vehicle in this segment. So accessing the third row in the CX-9 hasn't changed from the previous years. Mazda gives you a little lever here at the top of the seat back. Just pull this lever and the seat will kind of push itself forward. Then you have to kind of actually manually move it forward. Now you can see Mazda gives you a fair amount of space to get back here. There are some competitors like the Pilot that give you a little bit easier access, but let me get back here to show you guys how the space is. Now, I'm 5'7", as I said. I'm gonna get behind this seat back. Now, I have the seat all the way back right now. Oh, and you can, again, move the seat forward. Foot space isn't all that great, but once I finally got my feet underneath the seat, it's not terrible for somebody my height. My hair is just barely touching the ceiling here. The leather back here actually feels really nice and supple, so that's good. Materials are all hard touch plastic. There's no vents back here. There are cup holders, but no vents, and again, it could use a panoramic sunroof. So overall, the third row in the CX-9 is definitely not the best in the class. The Ascent, the Pilot, the Atlas all offers more space, but this is not bad if you guys are gonna put smaller kids back here. So just like the exterior, under the hood of the 19 CX-9, Mazda didn't make any changes to the vehicle. They didn't really need to. You still have the company's first ever turbocharged engine under the Skyactiv engine family. It's a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder with direct injection. It makes 227 horsepower on regular, or 250 if you guys feed it the good stuff, 310 foot-pounds of torque, regardless of whether you put regular or premium gas. It all goes out through a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now the transmission is definitely down 2 to 4 gears compared to the competition, so I'd like to see Mazda eventually add more gears. Now this car was about 300 pounds lighter than the first generation when it came out. This one with all-wheel drive, which is standard, sits at around 4,300 pounds. And fuel economy, it's not bad. It's rated at 20 in the city, 26 on the highway, and Mazda says if you guys properly equip it, it'll tow up to 3,500 pounds, which is again about 1,500 pounds less than most of the competition. But with all-wheel drive, about 250 horsepower with premium, let's get out on the road and see how it performs. So as I said before, powertrain-wise, Mazda didn't make any changes to the CX-9 for 2019. So first driving the vehicle, it's a very familiar environment for me. This is still one of the sportiest driving large 3-row crossovers in this segment. That's typically what Mazda is known for, is sporty driving vehicles. In fact, this is probably one of the sportiest. The Subaru Ascent, the new one, is actually also just as sporty and nimble feeling as this. So if you don't want your crossover to feel like a big minivan like the Honda Pilot does, like the Volkswagen Atlas does, you want to take a look at this Mazda CX-9 or the Subaru. Now, in terms of the acceleration, this turbo engine, put your foot down, has really good mid-range grunt. That's what Mazda specifically tuned the engine to do, is offer that strong mid-range. Because let's face it, in these crossover vehicles, you don't want to be revving the crap out of these engines like you would in the Honda Pilot, where it has that screaming V6, which I'll admit sounds pretty good, but most people aren't going to be revving it out to nearly 7,000 RPM. Instead, the Mazda, when you put your foot down above 3, it's got so much mid-range torque. And the 6-speed auto, despite it being down, 2 to 3 gears compared to the competition, does a really good job of keeping the engine in the meat of its power band. You really only notice the lack of additional gears when you're cruising on the highway where it's revving a little bit higher, or sometimes the gears are spaced a little bit too far apart where the engine could really take advantage of the power band. I would like to see Mazda add 2 more gears to this transmission, or hell, even 4 more gears. Everyone's moving to 10 speeds now. I know Mazda is stuck on 6 right now, but honestly, I think it's more of a cost-cutting measure. They don't want to have to develop a new transmission now. Where the CX-9 also really excels, and this is important for a family vehicle, is on the highway, on the interstate. It's really freaking quiet in here for a Mazda vehicle. Actually, in general, it's quieter than a lot of the competition in terms of road noise, in terms of wind noise, in terms of the steering. It's one of the best in the industry. I think this is probably better than the Subaru in terms of steering feel. And then when you put the vehicle into its sport mode here, the transmission will automatically get out of its top gear, put your foot down. And again, the engine itself is not going to be full of drama. This doesn't have really much in terms of turbo lag. It doesn't make any of those pops or whistle noises. I mean, 310 foot-pounds of torque is basically like V6, or V8-like in terms of its torque delivery, which is nice, which is what's really important for these vehicles. Now, in terms of the visibility, the CX-9 is also good in that regard. You have a nice low view. It's not as wide as some vehicles, so it feels nimble, it feels small. The side mirrors are also large. Mazda's driver assistance tech, which is standard on this trim, and automatic emergency braking is standard, works well, but I will say it's a little behind the times. The lane keep assist, for example, it's not like the best in the business. It really will just vibrate the wheel and then kind of shove you back into the lane as you cross the lane without signaling. It has full speed range adaptive cruise control, which works well, but it doesn't always work the best in terms of traffic conditions. But passing power, as you can see, not really an issue with this car. The engine also smooth. I will say that it is a little bit on the noisier side for me, especially when you get the revs above 4. It just sounds a little bit raspy. I don't know if Mazda is amplifying the noise or they're synthesizing it. The V6 engine is, in some competitors, produce less vibration, less noise. You do feel a fair amount of vibration coming in through the steering wheel and through the pedals of this vehicle, which again, Mazda probably did that on purpose because they wanted to give you back that driving feel. But for people in this segment, I don't think they really care about something like that. But it's good to know that this car has really sporty, confident handling, which is not something you associate with a vehicle this large or in this segment in general. So taking some corners, or this highway off-ramp on the CX-9, as you can see, the suspension stays nice and level. Very little body in the steering, is responsive, quick. And honestly, this car can handle really well. It's got that G vectoring control, which you don't really feel it out here. What you feel is just smooth, confident handling and steering. The car feels really playful. It gives you that confidence, which is really important in this segment. You can see, put your foot down. It short shifts at 5,500 RPM, but plenty of power. 0 to 60 time feels like it's around 7.5 seconds, which hasn't changed. Again, competitive, but about a second slower than the leaders in this segment in terms of acceleration. But who really cares when you're buying a vehicle like this? You're not going to buy it to go drag racing. What you're going to do is you're going to take it out on the highway. You're going to be putting people in it. You're going to expect the latest tech. You're going to want a nice interior. I mean, the CX-9 really delivers in most of those categories. Granted, it's not as spacious in the cargo area. The third row and the interior doesn't feel quite as spacious as some competitors, but it's got the best driving dynamics. It still looks really good on the outside. It's got most of the tech, although the Mazda Connect infotainment system is starting to get a little bit behind in terms of its processing speed. It's a little bit on the slow side. It lags at times, but I mean, really, there's very little that Mazda could do to this car to improve it, aside from a new infotainment system. The powertrain is really good. The overall impression that you basically paid a lot less, a lot more than you actually did for this vehicle is there. So really, I think the CX-9 is still a really solid choice, but really with new competition like from the Hyundai Palisade and the Kia Telluride, there's really a lot of choices out there, and I am looking forward to driving those new entries, but this and the Subaru Ascent are still my favorite in terms of driving dynamics. So after 3 years on the market, where does that leave the 2019 CX-9 in terms of the rest of the new competition? Now, I've had a chance to drive the new Subaru Ascent, the Volkswagen Atlas, the refreshed Pilot, the current generation Highlander, and I'm happy to report that the CX-9 still is one of the sleekest looking and best driving family crossovers in the segment. Its turbo engine, while it doesn't actually make the best noises, it has plenty of mid-range grunt. It's got the best steering feel in the segment, even though that may not be a super important factor. But what I really like about the CX-9 is just how nimble and sporty it feels. Unlike the Pilot or the Atlas, which feels like a minivan, you kind of drive this and it feels like a car, which is going to be a really important factor for a lot of buyers. Now, in terms of any faults with the car, you have less cargo space, you have a third row that's a little bit more cramped, you have a sluggish infotainment system, and really those little issues, if they're not really big deals for you, the CX-9 still remains one of the best choices in terms of a large three-row family crossover. This and the Ascent are definitely my favorite vehicles. Now, when it comes to the fuel economy, I was able to get around 19 miles to the gallon in city and around 27 miles to the gallon on the highway. I did actually get up to 30, nearly 30, when I took it on a longer trip, which really good gas mileage. Just keep in mind that some of the competitors will probably likely do a little bit better, considering they have a little bit more gears to kind of lower the engine revs. Now, with all that said, what's it going to cost to put a CX-9 in your driveway if you're looking to purchase one of these? Well, the price hasn't really changed. It starts at $32,360 for a front-wheel drive sport trim. This particular one, being the Signature, pretty much is fully loaded. It starts at around $44,900. The Grand Touring trim, if you guys can give up the Auburn leather, the real wood, whatever, that's like $2,000 less. My tester has $300 in the machine gray paint. It's got a couple of accessories here and there that add like around $1,000 for a few things. With the Destination, my tester stickers are around $47,885, which it's a little bit more expensive than the 2016 model that I last tested that was a Signature, but remember, as the years go on, the price always goes up by a couple $100s. Still, the CX-9 is one of the less expensive versions or entries in the segment. If you want like a comparably equipped Volkswagen Atlas, it's going to be over $50,000, and a Pilot Elite is around the same price. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2019 CX-9 Signature. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.